Hey there YouTube, my name's Brad. Welcome back to the shop. Today up on the hoist we have our 117 Screamin' Eagle Stage 4 kit that previously had a lifter roller. The roller bearings in the lifter had gotten damaged and it ate up the cam and spread a whole bunch of metal all around the engine and damaged the engine case. Well, it looks like we have all of those parts in stock now, so we're going to get going back on this project. Today, hopefully, what we'll accomplish is get the primary part, get the engine case out, get the oil pan off, and then I'm going to clean up the passageway from the oil pan up to where it comes up to the engine case. Clean that out. We have a brand new oil pan for it, new engine case, flywheel, cams, bearings, all of that stuff. So let's get going. Today we're just going to kind of speed through the disassembly of the primary and pulling the rest of the engine case out. And then hopefully tomorrow we can take a little bit of a closer look at the new parts and see how all of that looks. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe. Look at all of the metal in this oil pan. I knew that there was going to be a lot, but I have never seen this much material in an oil pan ever. See? Like, let me see if I can clean off one little corner. Just so you can see what it's supposed to look like. Keep in mind, this is just the top of the baffle. Like, there is a whole bottom that's full of all this crap too. So here's the corner that we just cleaned off. See if the flashlight helps. It's crazy. Like, obviously we knew that that lifter did some real damage, but look at how much it is. Oh, down in the bottom it's just like a whole dirt mound too. Hopefully that comes through pretty well. It's crazy. But that's why it's really important that if you have a situation where some sort of metal broke in the engine, you need to pull the oil pan, and if your type of oil pan is cleanable, like in earlier twin cams this was just a piece of plastic and you could pull it out and clean it, but in the later twin cams in Milwaukee 8s it's riveted together like this. We just get a whole new oil pan because there's no way that you can get all up in there and clean all of that out. Impressive. Look at that. Alright, let's keep on going. I haven't checked the runout like this on a Milwaukee 8 crank before, so this is new for both of us. But each one of these graduations are supposed to indicate thousandths of an inch. So we already have it so that the crank's nice and tight up on centers, and we're just gonna roll it over. And this is the crankshaft that came out of the motorcycle with the damaged lifter. So over here on the compensator side, let's see, that's 1, 2, 1 thousandths. Over here on the oil pump side, that's 1 thousandths. Let me hop on this other side in case the light's messing it up. So it looks like it's 2 thousandths on the compensator side and 1 thousandths on the oil pump side. So not bad at all. But what we really see here is the wear that happened from the lifter. It's got, I don't know if you can see that. You can definitely see where it started to cut through the coating on the race for the main bearing there. But this is pretty dirty tool. I'm gonna have to clean this up pretty good before we toss the new crankshaft up on here, but just interested to see. But that's what we have. Let's keep on going. Hopefully this is gonna show up, but this is our new crankshaft up in the crankshaft measuring jig. Again, each one of these lines indicate a thousandth of an inch. We just kind of have them set wherever. Now we're just going to roll it over. So on the oil pump side, we're less than a thousandth. It looks like probably a half a thousandth. And over on the sprocket shaft, it's let's see if I can bump that. It looks like a thousandth over on the oil pump half, which realistically, unless it's like a crazy number, we were going to be putting this crankshaft in anyways, because these are the parts that we have. But so it was just interesting to see that the original crankshaft had a different set of main bearing erases on it. But this is looking pretty good. Let's get this back in the plastic bag and in the box and start taking a look at the other stuff that we have. Here's the new crankcase that we have. As you can see, it already has the main bearing in it for the left side. It already has the piston jets in it. It has a normal inner cam bearing. And it has the right side main bearing in it, along with the oil plugs for the oil filter. So that's pretty nice. But let's talk a little bit about the parts that I have. Alright, so we have a whole cart full of new parts for this vehicle. Well, I just wanted to talk for a quick second about how things came to be for this decision. So if you haven't seen the original video where we diagnose the engine noise and identify that one of the front lifters, the roller bearings, the needle bearings for the front lifter had gone bad and caused the lifter to damage the engine case and metal everywhere. So you can see, like, when we go through and how much metal had made it past the filter through the rest of the engine. So there's a couple different ways doing an engine rebuild like this can go in a normal dealership kind of setting. So originally I called the motor company and I begged for a short block. That would be the engine case already assembled with the flywheel. Not that it's that hard, but there's a lot of things at play here. So one of the things at play is this vehicle is under warranty. So the labor time to do this is essentially, like, it's not even worth really doing this job. I'm losing so much time and money doing this. Even if I wasn't recording, it really doesn't even make it worthwhile to do. But you have to, because it's just what you gotta do. The other thing is, it makes it a whole lot easier and saves me time. So it's not just about going to the computer, looking for the engine case number, the crankshaft number, bearing numbers, and then going through the stage 4 accessory kit that the customer had bought and getting that part number, those part numbers, these part numbers. That takes time. That takes time that essentially the motor company is not going to pay me for, because we're upside down in this in time. But this is the way that the motor company decided to go with it. Also, so there's options as far as like a long block, a short block, or every individual item like this. Ultimately, I want the best for the customer. So, like, when you're thinking about a project, usually you're thinking about how much things cost, the price of the total project. You're thinking about how much time it's going to take. You're thinking about the quality of this outcome that you're going to have. So in this situation, the cost is irrelevant to me. I'm not the one paying the bill. I want the best that's for the customer. And ultimately, now that I'm doing this, I'm going to be married to this vehicle for life. So say this vehicle has an engine noise in 4,000 miles, 5,000 miles, 7,000 miles, 8,000 miles. I'm going to be married to it for the rest of my life. It's always going to be, Brad worked on this engine. give it Brad. So there's that's in my mind of where I'm upside down in time in doing this in the first place, let alone it's a constant way to lose time in the future. So I want the very best outcome. The second thing is about time. So I have no control over how long things take, but it was clear that the engine case was damaged. Those kind of things usually take a little bit of time now with what's going on in the world. So that is what it is. So the only thing that I can really control is the quality of the project. Essentially, that means a lot of new parts. And I chose all of the new parts that I could get. So I wanted everything that rolled and touched and moved against each other because we had a bunch of metal flinging around in the engine. So we have new crankcase. I'll open up all the boxes and I'll show you all the new stuff that we have. The only things that we are going to be reusing, essentially, are the cylinder heads and the induction module and the cylinders. The cylinders we've cleaned up with a fresh hone, just so that the new piston rings seat well. And ideally, I'd like to get new cylinders. I've done that before, and the motor company has called me back and yelled at me about it. So that is what it is. It wasn't like the cylinders were physically damaged, but in the big picture, the customer has a very expensive motorcycle here, and he paid for a very expensive engine kit to be installed in it. It's not my job to start pinching pennies and saying, oh, we can reuse this, we can reuse that, because that also costs me time. It costs me time to clean things up, it costs me time to, peel off the aluminum that's welded to other pieces of steel. We don't have time for that. That's not the way that this project's set up. So now that we have that out in the air, that the price of this deal and the time of this deal, I can't control. The only thing that I can control is quality. So I'm going to do the best that I can. When I'm talking about quality, I mean to the best that my abilities are. It isn't part of the job or the scope to measure and blueprint this whole engine. Essentially, that's not the way that warranty labor time works. So labor warranty time is essentially, they're going to pay me for what it costs to replace the engine case. Now, there's a lot more that's going on here because we have to replace everything, we have to prep everything, because everything's full of metal. Like, there isn't a labor time for metal contamination. So that's where we're going to be so upside down on labor time, because we're getting paid for one thing, even though we're really kind of doing like a much bigger thing. So these engines are engineered in such a way where all of these pieces fit together. I'm going to measure the ring end gap. I have no control over, any of the other measurements as far as a lot of this. So that's where we're going to just be doing a lot of assembly and putting it in the vehicle. So this isn't so much a blueprinting engine performance, to know that everything's 100% perfect. This is real world what happens and the way that I'm expected to do it. Put the parts together, put it in the bike, get the bike on its way. So I haven't done a Milwaukee 8 before. This is my first time. So the balance shaft lining up is going to be a little bit new to me, but I like to do things, like I said, to the best that I can. So that means cleaning threads, cleaning everything that I can, introducing the least amount of dirt and dust, and Loctiting and torquing everything. The way that I'm going to do that, I have the service manual here. This is for 2020. You always want to use, if you have the option, you want to use the newest service manual that applies to your vehicle. Like if you have a twin cam, this wouldn't apply. But since this bike is a Milwaukee 8, the 2020 service manual is also for a Milwaukee 8. This is going to have the most updated information in it. I normally don't use the paper catalog so much, I've gotten a little more used to using the online service manual. I do have a specific login because I work at a dealership, and the online manual isn't exactly like the Harley-Davidson paper manual. It's more like a washed down, condensed version, but it's nice because it has, like, you can just go in and type in engine case bolt, and it will bring you down to that section, usually give you the torque sequence and the torque number, and that's the type of stuff that is important to me. So, but you can go on the Harley-Davidson portal if you're a customer and you just have a VIN number, and there is information that you can look on there. It won't have the service manual, but just thought I'd show you this real quick. I'll put a link down in the description. I don't know if it's like worldwide or US or Europe only, so keep that in mind, but there will be a link down in the description. You know, it's funny, you get in here, check it out, see if there's some information that's useful for you, you know, for free. The wiring diagram information in there is color coded, and if you're doing any type of wiring on your bike, I'm sure that's going to be useful for you. So let me show you that. But right here at the top it says, you're just going to type in service info period harley-davidson.com/SIP / and that's for service information portal. So this is essentially where I log in, and you can check out and, you know, see if whatever the monthly rate is. But if you're a customer and you just want to see what type of information is here and if it's useful for you, you can go to search. This is, I already added a VIN number. This is just for a bike that was actually traded in. I'm just using it as for an example. So you would just put your type your VIN number in. And then there is some information. Just quickly, I went through vehicle documents and then wiring diagrams just to see, you know, what would really be useful here for anybody that's viewing this. And this is where things like this really come in nicely, where it gives you all the color-coded wiring diagrams that are associated with the vehicle. You know, so if you're modifying stuff or, you know, doing a little bit of home DIY, some nice stuff to know if you're looking for that kind of information. I wonder what's under videos. Oh well. Well, I'll let you guys figure all of that out. If you want to go on the service information portal and look at that and figure it out yourself. We're going to get back to the project that we have at hand. And the next thing that I want to do is the way that I'm going to do this. I'm going to put the crankshaft and obviously the balance shaft into the engine case, seal up the engine case with the engine case sealant. That way it's going to give us a little bit of time where it starts drying before everything else. And then I will put the new oil pan on the transmission, put this lower end assembly into the frame, and then I'm going to put the primary together. All that time is going to give the engine case sealant enough time to set up, and then we'll start putting the rest of the top end and the cam components on it. And in between there, we'll unbox all the new stuff, and I'll just do a quick run through of that. So I'll bring you back if there's any kind of important information, but let's get going on this, get this thing back together, and get this thing out of the shop. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe. Let me also say that I'm not going to be doing it exactly word for word, number by number, by the service manual. Previous experience goes a lot into the way that I do this, and there's a lot of reasons why I do it. It may look pretty ghetto to you, but there isn't anything wrong with it. Do things the way that you like to do. If you want the exact 100% right information, follow the service manual. It tells you word for word what to do basically and how to get there. But we're kind of doing a quick assembly, and this is the way that I like to do things. So this is the way that I'm going to do it. So let's get going. First off, while the cases are still together, I double checked it already has the same VIN number. So that's a nice thing about going this route with Harley-Davidson sending us a new engine case and everything is this has the exact same VIN number on it as the old engine case. So there's no way to know that anything has happened or that the situation has happened other than by the customer telling you or you having a copy of the work order, basically. I guess another dealership can look up online if the bike has been had warrantyable events at a different dealership, but whatever. So we already checked, made sure that the piston jet screws were tight. You just want to double check just because. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop off these engine case bolts, put them off to the side, and then that means that I'm going to be putting the crankshaft in this side of the engine case first. Like I'm going to have this side laying down, then I'm going to lay the crankshaft into it, and then I'm going to line up the balancer, and I'm going to make sure that I put a Screamin' Eagle assembly lube on all the bearings, and I'm going to squirt just a little bit of oil in the bearings too as I'm putting this together. And then I'll come back through, wipe off the engine case with our alcohol-based engine cleaner and a lint-free rag. And I'll be using what the motor company says to use is the normal high-performance gray sealant to seal up the engine cases, coming back, Loctiting and torquing all the screws, and letting this sit off to the side with a bag on top of it as we continue on with the rest of the bike. So I just double checked. I didn't want to mess up the balancer because the balancer is obviously specific about the way that it needs to be indexed with a crankshaft, but it also has this dual like scissor gear where this back one is spring loaded to take up any type of mesh that's in the teeth. So you have to preload the spring that's built into this back gear. I was just looking through the instructions. The way to do that is with this Harley-Davidson tool. It looks like Jim's makes one for under 50 bucks, but it's basically just a thread, and then it's tapered to index off this hole. And it said to do it, you just use a flathead screwdriver. Obviously you want to get it up against the spring correctly. And then this is my first time doing this, so it's probably easiest if you had somebody else to give you a hand. Whew. Said to Oh, insert a screwdriver. All right, I'm going to probably end up doing this in my lap, but insert a screwdriver to line the teeth up. And then you put the pin through, and there's a little threaded hole back there. And the taper lines everything up so that you can drop this in the crankcase and keep on going. So let's do that. Alright, so that was pretty easy, but you use a little tool, it lines up this back gear that's spring loaded with the little tool, just threads in there. So now we need to line the balancer up. It uses this line and then the line that's also on the flywheel. So let's rotate that thing around and get that lined up correctly too. Alright, we now have the balancer in. It's pretty goofy the way the service manual talks about it. It says that the balancer lines may not line up. On mine, it lines up like it's almost impossible. Like it's 54% of the way on one tooth and then like 46% the way on the other tooth. So it's so wacky how it's not just like lines and lines, but whatever. So the balancer is lined up. We removed the assembly tool. I just put the left crankcase half on real quick just to make sure everything was going to line up and be cool and everything, which it is. So now I am going to clean up the surfaces around here and put the engine case sealant on. What I do is, like I was saying, I go through with a lint-free cloth, and then I go through with the lint-free cloth with our alcohol-based brake cleaner on it. Just get any type of oil or residue off, and then I get the engine case sealant and I dab it on my finger, and then I dab it on the engine case, and then I go through and I wipe off just the lightest like inside edge. You'll see me do it. Plop the case on and then Loctite the bolts and torque everything together. So let's get going on that. I like to do around the dowels first, over there, rather than in that side of the engine case. Just, I feel like that leaves the least likely amount to scrub any of this gasket sealant into the dowels. And then you want to put on the least amount that you can, just like the thinnest little amount. And that's where I do like this little dabbing, and I'm just looking at the difference in the sheen between the engine case and then the sealant that I'm just putting on it. And it should be like almost like transparent. You should almost be able to see through it. But you got to work quick because it does start setting up pretty fast. Alright, and then at the very end, I like to go through the inside, and I just kind of like wipe off any excess, because it's going to squeeze out even more when we put the engine case halves together. So I feel like it leaves like a little buffer zone. I'm sure it doesn't do anything, but makes me feel good. Alright, doesn't look like we missed any spots. This part here and this part here don't really matter that much. I'm just going to clean up this little area just because. You know what, since I'm here, I'm going to do this side too. And then if you have like any little holes, you want to make sure that they're all clear and nothing crazy has happened there, just because. So that side's dry, this side's wet with sealant. Let's put it together. Alright, it's looking good.
Did you get flat wheels for that one box? For that bike you're working on now? Ooh, I need the box.
So we got everything lined up. It all just dropped, fell right together. I like to give it just a couple taps with the dead blow hammer just to make sure that the dowel pins are fully seated. And then I'm just going to run the bolts in quickly but lightly with my electric ratchet. Just clamp everything down real quick, get that sealant, start curing, and then come back and do the torque sequence. Let's do that.